Good morning and welcome to Workforce Skills with John Morse. Another beautiful day out here in Phoenix, Arizona. Boy, do I have something to talk about. It's been a rough couple weeks. It's the storm is hitting. It's when somebody says you can't handle the storm, I'm going to whisper back, I am the storm. I'm going to take control. I'm going to take over whatever's happening. I'm not going to let it break me. I'm getting punched in the gut nonstop these last couple weeks. There's some stuff going on in the business. I'm not going to throw my dirty laundry out there right now, but it's really tough. So how do you deal with this when you have a situation? You've got to focus on running a business. You got to focus on doing your job, painting what you're painting, framing what you're framing, laying the tile down, whatever you're doing. How do you focus on what you're doing when you're getting punched in the gut and life is hitting you sideways? It's a storm. It's chaos. How do we stop, look at everything that's going around us and try to control it and try to make sense of what's happening around us? How do you make sense when there's chaos? Things are out of control. It's really difficult right now to focus on things in the office and things in the field, and we're grinding every day. It's a struggle. I'm going to be real about it for a minute. It's a struggle, and some days you just want to throw your hands up and say, I can't do it anymore. I'm out. I quit. But you can't do that. When that storm hits, when everything's falling apart around you, you have to step up, you have to pick yourself up, and you have to fight harder. You have to push harder. There's jobs you're on today. There's people out there that are on a job right now where they feel like everything's falling apart around them. You're losing control. You have to find a way to stay in control. You have to find a way to control the chaos. You have to become the storm and control it and own it. That's what you have to do. You can't look at this and say, I can't do this. I quit. I give up. That's not life. You're never going to get anywhere if you constantly quit. I quit, I can't is not part of our vocabulary today. It can't be. It won't. We have to push. We have to grind. It's really difficult because for me, running a business, I've got a lot of people relying on me. I got a lot of people that their paycheck depends on what I do. Their paycheck depends on the next decision that I make, and I can't fail them. And it's a struggle when you look at everybody around you, and I've got to make sure they have a paycheck. I have to make sure their rent is paid. I've got to make sure they have food on the table. How do you do that? How do you stay calm through all the chaos, everything that's going on? You find a way to get your mind right. You find a mindset to get in that groove. You find a mindset that, I call it beast mode. I call it staying hungry. Whatever the case is, you have to find a way to stay consistent. You have to consistently tell yourself, I'm going to make this. I'm going to do this. You find things that are going to motivate you. What motivates you? What motivates me? I've got people that depend on me. I've got to provide for them. I've got a wife. I've got a daughter. I've got grandkids. I've got family. And everybody that works for me, I do consider part of my family. They're an extension of the family. It's our company, PHP Commercial Painting. It's part of the PHP family. We live it. We breathe it. We fight for it. We do whatever it takes to protect the family, to protect the company. And that's what we're doing right now on a day-to-day basis. And it's a struggle. And sometimes when you're down, you get kicked a little bit more. And you have to fight back. You have to push back. You can't let it stop. And you don't know where the punches are coming from sometimes. Right now, I don't know who's punching me. I don't know what's happening. I don't know why the things are happening in the business that I'm dealing with today. But somehow I'm going to push. I'm going to fight. I'm going to get through this. There is no other option. The option of quitting is not there. We're not going to let this happen to us. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep grinding. So as we're going through this, you have to find things that motivate you. You have to find that light at the end of the tunnel. And sometimes that's difficult. 2 weeks ago, I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and then all of a sudden I feel like I'm drowning again. But at the same time, I have to look at the small victories. I have to pick and choose what I'm going to worry about and what I'm not going to worry about. There's certain things you just can't change. You can't change things that are happening around you that are out of your control. But what you can control is you. You can control how you react, how you perceive the situation. What is it going to do to you? Are you going to let it make you insane? Is it going to affect your sanity? Are you going to make poor decisions because of the things that are happening around from you? Or are you going to look at the situation and let the feelings and emotions set that to the side and focus on what's logical, what makes financial sense for your life, your business, whatever you're dealing with? You have to determine what's going to affect you. You have to figure out, are you going to let this affect your emotions, your feelings, or are you going to stop and take an assessment of what's around you? I have to sit down with my team. I have to sit down with the people that work for me. We're going to sit down with our management team and figure out, okay, what's going on in this situation? How are we going to handle this? We sit in what we call our conference room. We call it the war room. When we land a job and we have a contract, we're going to sit there and we're going to discuss the plans, the contract, the scope of work, what we're doing. Before we even step on that job, there are hours involved in this, and we're going to know exactly what we need to do. And we're going to discuss things that are going to hit us sideways. We're going to discuss, well, what if this happens? How do we deal with this situation? And it might never happen, but at least we know how to deal with it. We're always looking 10 steps ahead. You have to. But what happens when all of a sudden you're getting hit by something that you never even thought was going to come your way? We're dealing with a situation in the business right now I never in my wildest dreams thought I would have to deal with right now. And it's by an entity out there. I don't even know who's making it happen. But we have to figure out a way to get through this. We have to stop each second of the day and take a look at it and figure out, how are we going to deal with this situation? How are we going to move forward? I want to make sure I'm making the wisest, most efficient decision in each case to move forward. How do you do that? I have a team. We sit down, we're going to discuss it. If we make a mistake, we learn from it, we grow from it. Some people say failure is not an option, but I'm going to tell you right now, I do believe failure is an option, and we need to embrace the failure. We have to embrace what's happening to us. We have to embrace the failure. We have to embrace the mistakes, and we have to grow from it. And you learn from it and you put things in place so it doesn't happen again. Right now, we're putting so many checks and balances in place so we don't make the same mistakes. We don't have the same problems. We want to make sure as we move forward, we grow from these situations. We grow from the struggles that we're dealing with. It's no different than what we're dealing with at work than if you have a situation in your family life or in your personal life. Not everything's going to be easy. What happens when all of a sudden somebody gets sick in the family? You miss a couple days worth of work. Now you're losing that pay. Hopefully you have sick time at work that you can utilize and take advantage of. But what happens when a child in your family gets sick and one of the parents has to stay home and you're losing that income? We struggle from this, but we have to find a way to move forward. We can't let this be the end-all be-all of our situation. We can't give up. You will never give up on your child. You can't give up on your child. So you're going to push forward. It's no different than what I'm dealing with in the business right now. I can't give up on my people. I can't give up on my PHP family. We're going to push forward. We're going to grind, and we're going to make this work. And as I'm going through this struggle and I'm talking about the situation and I'm being very transparent with the people around me, what we're dealing with, they're on board with me and helping get through this. I have their support. They have my back. They're in this no matter what. John, we've made it through the good times. I know we're in a bad spot, but we're going to make it through this and come back stronger. Just hearing that from the people around me is pushing me forward. Hearing that is giving me the motivation to continue to do what I need. I found my motivation in the people around me because I've stuck by them when they struggled. I helped them through their personal situations when they were struggling. Now they're helping me through mine. That's what a family does. And when you as a family in your personal life, you're having problems with either your wife, your husband, your kids, parents, whatever the situation is, you stand by each other and you help each other through it. And you're stronger because of it. But at the same time, what I've learned over the last couple weeks too is sometimes we will hurt the ones that are closest to us without even realizing that we're doing it. I've been guilty of this the last couple weeks. I jumped to assumptions, accusations, thinking I knew what was happening, but made some comments that I probably shouldn't have. And I've apologized to those people. We are going to hurt the ones closest to us because we're the most comfortable with them around us. It's so easy, so simple to say something to someone close to us because we know they're going to forgive us. And we probably do it subliminally without even thinking about it, subconsciously. We don't even realize that we're doing this. Whether it's a husband and wife that has been married for many, many years, we are going to hurt each other without even realizing we're doing it because we're most comfortable with them. We feel we can be our own self, say whatever we want to do, and we don't realize the damage that that can cause, or even to our own children, and a damage that that can cause for many, many years to come as your children grow into adults and they hold a grudge, or there's something that you said a certain way that they perceived in a certain way that was never meant to be that way. We have to stop and think about what we say to the people around us. I've realized that within the last couple of days that whatever I think is, whatever thoughts, whatever theories I have with what's happening in the company and what's happening to me personally right now, I'm going to keep it to myself. In the end, it will come out what's going on and what's happening, and it won't be a theory anymore. It won't be a thought. It'll be the facts of the situation. But when we go through these situations, we can't talk about what our thoughts and theories are unless we have hard, solid facts on what's happening. If you don't know who's coming at you, if you don't know what's happening, and we deal with this all day at work. Oh, this person said this or this person said that, and all of a sudden there's rumors flying, and it gets back to us, and we don't even know the reality of what was actually said. You know, I remember as a kid growing up, we did, I think, a thing in school where we had 10 people in a row, and the teacher whispered something to the first person in their ear, and they had to pass that sentence down or that paragraph down to each person down the row. By the time it got to the very end and it was repeated, it was completely different than what it started out as. So what does that tell us? That tells us that what we see, what we hear, we perceive it a different way, and it gets repeated in a different way. So how do we change that? We have to stop and evaluate what's happening. Take the cold, hard facts. Write down what you're dealing with. Write down what's going on in your life and focus on that. As something happens, assess it from there, moving on. We're going to make the best decision we can with the information we have at hand right now. But knowing that this is the best information right now, I can't jump to conclusions. I have to go on cold, hard facts of what's happening. It's no different than on a job site. Something happens on the job site. You have to face what's right in front of you. Things are going to change. We're in construction. You know how many trades are on a job site at any given time? Everybody's bumping into everybody else. Everybody's in the way. It's difficult. And you have to change and adapt as things change right there in front of you. The reality of it is most people get knocked down by the storm. They let their emotions take control of the situation. They let their emotions reflect on their reactions, and they make the wrong decisions at these moments. We have to become emotionally strong in when we're dealing with a problem or something that hits us. I want to think logically about this. I don't want to come across and say that person's weak, but when we let our emotion take the best of us and control us, I believe we are weak, or we're at our weakest point at that moment. So how can we train ourselves to become stronger? How can I change how I react to these situations? For me personally, becoming stronger in this situation is surrounding myself with positive people. Being transparent with the people around me to talk about what's happening, what we're dealing with. Even in my home life, if there's a problem, I sit there and I talk about it with my wife. We discuss what's happening. We get through it together. I can't let the emotions get the best of me. If I do that, the poor decision-making comes into play. Your emotions can make you weak. They create a weakness in you to where your decisions will reflect that. I don't want my decisions to reflect my weakness or my emotions or a poor decision. So I want to make an assessment of what I'm dealing with. I want to assess the problem. I want to assess whatever's right there in front of me. And I don't want to make a rash decision. I don't want to make a instant decision sometimes. Although in the heat of the moment, we do that all the time. We make a rush decision right there in the moment because Our emotions are taking control of us. We don't stop and think about what's happening. We don't think about the consequences of our decisions. And if we can learn to control ourselves, learn to step back in those moments of getting punched in the gut, in those moments of dealing with a situation in your life, your work, and we assess it and take time to think about it, we will make a better decision. It's interesting. I've heard something years ago that if you're starting to get angry, stop and count to 10. If you can stop and count to 10 and think about it, you can control your anger. You can control your emotions. And I think that theory works in any situation when your emotions are at its peak to where you're going to make a wrong decision. If you feel and it's going to take time, it's going to take training. If you can stop yourself, okay, take a deep breath, John. I'm going to count to 10. And maybe you do it backwards. Maybe you do it forwards. You find something that works. And maybe counting to 10 is not what works for you. Maybe you're in the middle of a situation. You need somebody with you to count to 10 with you. Man, I'm about to lose my mind. I need help here. Do me a favor. Let's stand here and let's count to 10 together. I'm going to tell you what I'm dealing with right afterwards, but I need help so I don't make a rash decision. You find what works for you. You find what works and you implement it and you move forward from that. So for me, I have to stop. I have to think about it. There's sometimes we'll be in the office and I'll be sitting there with my partner, Greg. We got a situation and we have to make a decision. And I cannot begin to tell you how many times it's happened. I say, you know what? I'm going to go home and sleep on this. I'm not making a decision right now because I know right now I'm going to make the wrong decision. And there's been times where I'll start talking about it and Greg will put me in check and I'll say, John, hey, I think you need to go home and sleep on this one. But let's talk about this again in the morning. Fridays are the best. When I got a problem on Friday, that gives me the whole weekend to think about it. And I run about 1,000 different scenarios in my head, kind of screws up my weekend. I don't get much sleep, but I try to get through it. By Monday, it's crazy how many times I do this. And then I go right in front of the situation and it never plays out the way I thought it was going to be. I'm always thinking of every worst case scenario, what's going to happen, how it's going to play out. And then bam, it's right there in my face. And I look at Greg after the fact. I'm like, oh, wow, I can't believe it was that simple, that easy. And now we're past it. We're moving forward. Blew it totally out of proportion within my own mind. But that's what we do. That's human nature. It's human nature that we're always going towards the worst situation. It's human nature for us to let our emotions get the best of us. We have to stop ourselves and say, hey, John, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to think about this. I'm going to come back and talk about it. Maybe you got to walk outside, go for a walk around the block. You're in a situation at home. You got your wife, your kids there. There's a situation. You're about to lose your mind. Go for a walk around the block. Just take 10 minutes to relax. Me and my wife were walking the other day down the street and we were going for one of our long walks. And it was on our block and there was a couple across the street down the way and they were in the garage working together. And all I heard was the wife, I'm assuming, nagging on her husband. The husband was literally yelling and screaming back at her. And I'm thinking, man, these people look like they're 65, 70 years old. And I'm thinking, I do not want to be that person when I get older. I'm looking at that situation and me and Lori looked at each other. We both said, hey, if we ever talked like that to each other, we're walking separate directions and cooling down and coming back. You find what works. You put a plan in place for the situation before it happens. You have to prepare for this before it happens. Not everything you can prepare for, but if you're at least planning ahead, preparing for it, gearing yourself up for a situation that could go sideways, you're going to be able to handle it 10 times better than if you just go in there with your emotions and deal with it right at that moment. The same thing goes with as an employee. Here I am, I'm an employer, I run a business, I have a lot of employees that work for me. But the same goes for the employee out there. You that's working for somebody, you have to do your job. And there's going to be times where you're working and sometimes you think, oh man, I don't know why we're doing it this way. Boss is coming out, whether it's the superintendent, owner of the company, he's saying, okay, here's what we're doing today. I need you to do this. We're going to do it this way. And in the back of your mind, you're thinking, you know what? I think I know a better way. I think it should be done this way. And I'm just going to do this. And then it creates a situation. Now you're in the middle of a situation with your boss, the owner, somebody above you, coming back and saying, why aren't you doing it this way? Well, I thought it'd be better to do it this way. And you made a decision, and you have to ask yourself, was it the right decision, even if you think you knew better? We deal with this all the time. There's hours that go into planning on a project. The way I look at it is, if you make an emotional decision or think you know better, and to me, that is an emotional decision. If you're out there and you think you know better and you start to do it your way and it doesn't work, who's to blame? You are. But if you follow the direction, you do it the way you were told to do it, and it fails, now whose fault is it? It's the person that told you how to do it. The blame doesn't rest on you. The decision-making wasn't rested on you. And so now they have to deal with the repercussions of this. But how many times, and we deal with this all the time, that we have employees that come in, well, I think it should be done this way, or I don't like this, and they get emotional at work and they get frustrated. It's just a job. You're just there to do your job and move forward. I think it's great that employees take pride in their work. They do care about the company, but sometimes you have to step back and say that I care so much about this company that I'm going to let the right person make the decision. Maybe I'm not the right person to make this decision. You have to let them carry the weight of the company on their shoulders. We do that every day with our superintendents, our estimators, myself, the office staff. We're carrying a lot of weight on our shoulders and decisions. And we could let that affect our emotions. We could let that affect our decision making, but we're not allowed to. We can't allow ourselves to get to that point because we have to make the best decision for the employees around us. If we start making irrational decisions, if we start making emotional decisions, how's that going to affect the employees out in the field? That will trickle down. In our business, we have to look confident. We have to look like we're in control. We have to control everything about that project, even when it's going sideways. Because if your leaders are an emotional wreck, then everything in there is going to become chaos. Now the storm is controlling everything. You have to become the storm. You have to control the chaos. You are the storm moving forward to control what's going on around you. You cannot let the chaos and the storm control you. So as you move forward in your decision-making, as you move forward in your day-to-day activities, I want you to start looking at how you're handling each situation. Is it a logical solution? Does it make sense? Or are you letting your feelings get the best of you? I tell people that come through my vocational classes, and I'm doing this right now. I started a new vocational class. We're on week 2. It's interesting because it's a bunch of men and women going through a behavioral health facility. They're living in a halfway house. I got 15 people in this class, and I literally on day 1 told them, leave your feelings outside the door. I don't care what emotional baggage you have. I don't care where you come from. The only thing we're going to talk about in this class is how to get a job, how to be productive, and how to make money. They loved it. That's what they want. They say that, they want it, they believe it until something happens and now they're an emotional wreck. And we had a situation with someone in the class that had a bad day, was being disruptive in the class, and we had to deal with that. And unfortunately for him, it was dealt with in front of the whole class. I'm not going to pull him aside and coddle him. That's not what happens in work. In work, there's a problem. We deal with it. We focus on it. We fix it right then and there with everybody. Everybody's going to know about it. There's nothing to hide. There's no secrets in this. We have to fix what's happening right in front of us. So when you bring your feelings in a class or to work and you get emotional, you're putting yourself on blast in front of everybody. You're letting everybody know that you're going to be irrational. You're going to be a wreck. And more than likely, we're going to ask you to step off the job. We're going to ask you to leave, maybe sit you down, talk to you, calm you down, and then get your head right to where you can come back to work and be productive and be part of a productive team. We need productive team members. Now, I get that everybody has those moments. Last couple weeks, I've had a couple emotional moments. I've tried to control it. I've tried to hide my feelings from everybody, but it's difficult. Not all the time can you hide this. But if you can make the people around you aware of what you're dealing with, what's going on, Now they can be more compassionate of what you're dealing with and help you through that. It's all about making the right decisions. It's all about thinking logically and not emotionally. I don't want to be an emotional wreck. I want to do the right thing for the people around me. And in doing that, I have to be inclusive and include them in the decisions, what's happening, where we're at as a company. We've, over the last couple of weeks with dealing with different things, we're in the process of moving the podcast studio. We're now under one roof with the business and the podcast studio. So it might look a little bit different to you guys. We had a lot of effort putting this together, a lot of decision making, and it's been a struggle. There were some mistakes while doing this, between painting, between carpet, between getting the old tenant out of the suite that we took over next to our space. There was a lot of decisions that had to be made. Some of them had to be quick decisions, but none of them were emotional decisions. It was all logical and what's best for the podcast, what's best for the business, what's going to put us in the best position to be the most productive in what we do. We have to sit back and we have to look at every decision. And we're not going to make the right decision every time. And we have to live by our decisions. We have to learn from them. We have to grow from them. Remember, I said embrace the failure. You have to embrace your failure. You have to embrace whatever's happening, whatever's around you, and learn from it and grow from it. You got to remember, nobody's perfect, not even me. I sit here and talk to you guys every week because it helps me. This is therapy for me. This is my therapy session, sitting here and venting and getting things out with you guys. 90% of the time when I come on here, I'm talking about what's happening at work, what's happening in my life, what I'm dealing with in the vocational classes that I teach. And it helps me get through the day. It helps me get through the week. I appreciate everyone that watches us and gains from this and learns from this. Because of this podcast, I've actually gained an employee that used to watch this and listen to it, still does, and she's working for me now. And she is a phenomenal employee. I'd just like to give a shout out to Mimi because I know you're going to listen to this after Thursday and you might listen to it while you're working on a job site for us. So you're doing a great job. I appreciate you. It means the world to me that you're working for us. And you came into our company with that beast mode mindset. And you knew what we were about by just listening to all these podcasts. So I appreciate everybody out there that listens to this, follows us, pays attention to us. It's like and subscribe. Send me the comments. I really appreciate the comments that I've been getting lately. It means a lot to me. Even the negative ones. I appreciate those too. Tells me you're an emotional wreck out there, but keep hitting me because it just makes me stronger. So once again, guys, I want to thank you for joining me. Stay hungry.